Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to unearth memories and to praise them here. Now that we have established that we are, in fact, literature students, a very good afternoon to one and all present. Welcome to Dead Poets Society, the biannual poetry event organized by Dhiti, the English Literary Association of Maitreyi College. As literature students, fostering spaces to recite, celebrate, and share poetry has been extremely important to us. 2020 has taught us a lot, from the importance of human touch, family, social justice, to togetherness. Hence, we decided to open our socially distant arms to participants from colleges across the country and beyond in an unprecedented way. Our theme for this semester is what keeps us going even when we are far apart: memory. Memory is an important cognitive process. Without it, there would be no past, but only the present. Although subjective, it is unsettling to imagine not knowing things that make us who we are or not being able to learn from our past experiences. We would be perpetual beginners at every activity without any sense of identity, information, names, faces, or the concept of time. Hence, it is important to cherish the aspects of our memory that shape us. We read a number of entries that touched our hearts, but we could only select 10. We cannot wait for this beautiful experience to begin. But to ensure this beauty, we are requesting the participants to keep their cameras on and their mics off. First, we have Jayati Bhasin. Jayati, please take from here.
Hello, everyone. A very, very warm good afternoon to each one of you present here. And firstly, I'm so honored to be selected one of the reciters here because um, I'm just honored. Yeah. So I'm going to recite a poem which was written by Abraham Lincoln. Though I would not go into history and political science here, but he was the 16th president of the United States of America, and he was the person who led the nation through the American Civil War. And again, I will not here go into history. So he wrote this poem when he visited his childhood home after 15 years or so after becoming the president of the states. And even though this poem is divided into two cantos, which is the first part and the second part, so I would be just reciting the first part. My reason for choosing this poem based on the theme which was given to us, that is memory, was because I think most of the people out here, we have left our childhood homes, right? There was a time when when we were born, there was our home in which we were born, but then because of certain circumstances and upliftment of our lives, we had to leave our childhood homes. So I think this poem made me remember my childhood home, and I think it would do the same to you too. So here's the poem. My childhood's home I see again, and sadden with the view. And still as memory crowds my brain, and there's pleasure in it too. O memory, thou midway world, twixt earth and paradise, where things decayed, and loved one lost, in dreamy shadows rise. And freed from all that's earthly while, seem hallowed, pure and bright, like scenes in some enchanted isle, all bathed in liquid light. As dusky mountains please the eye, when twilight chases day, as bugle notes that passing by, in distance die away. As leaving some grand waterfall, we lingering list its roar, so memory will hallow us all, we have known but know no more. Near 20 years have passed away, since here I bid farewell to woods and fields and scenes of play, and playmates loved so well. The friends I left that parting day, how changed as time has sped. Young childhood grown, strong manhood grey, and I have half all are dead. I hear the loud survivors tell how naught from death could save, till every sound appears a knell, and every spot a grave. I range the fields with pens and pace the hollowed rooms, and fell companion of the dead, I'm living in the tombs. This was a poem which was written by Lincoln, and it made me realize my childhood home.
That was a beautiful poem, Jayati. Thank you so much. Next, we have Ananya Rat.
First, let me just say that I've been born and brought up in Delhi, so Maitreyi College, it is such an honor to be selected to recite in one of your events. It is, and I'm so grateful and I'm so appreciative of this entire effort you've put together in these times. It's truly commendable and so heartwarming to see, even during these trying pandemic times, we still can bring a world, you know, where we're still together. Um, I'm gonna try to keep the explanation of this poem short, but there's just such a long history behind it. I think for context, like I said, it might be important for me to mention that I was born and brought up in New Delhi. I studied at DPS Mathura Road, had a very turbulent 2019. When my board results came in, I was still paper thin from my ongoing illness, and I was wailing at my mark sheet that read 95%. It's not bad, but I knew that had I written two of my strongest subjects papers in my senses, had I not been transported in and out of the examination hall in an ambulance, I would have been able to score the highest in my school, something that I had wanted ever since I was a child. But in life, you can give no excuses. So I couldn't give JE either. I'm very close to my parents, and in our house, we are friends first. So, seeing my state, my dad, who had shifted to Nagpur at that time, he had joined as the head of a government organization. He suggested it was best for me and my mom to take a break from everything and for me to recover both physically and mentally. He used to tour a lot. He used to take us along on his tour, so mom and I were pretty well traveled as well. But this was the first time we weren't all living together in Delhi, and so we shifted the same summer. Nagpur is a beautiful city. I can describe it as the equivalent of the American suburbs near a big city. And there is everything here. I had everything here, but I was dismal. And what baffled me was that my mental state had gone worse. If I was rolling down the slope before, now I was truly accelerating. And there was this insane frustration inside me, and I kept telling myself, God, Ananya, have some shame. Look at everything you have. People are struggling to manage 3 square meals a day. Why can't you be happy here? You have a Shakespearean style balcony right in your room, complete with ivies of flowers and birds. And it's not like you've been thrown in a small box. You ungrateful wench. I was very hard on myself. I didn't know what was wrong and I was desperate. Um, as later on I would find out when my mom would take me to a psychiatrist, I was suffering from crippling anxiety and depression. I was a quite introverted kid growing up, and I was alone most of the time. But here, for the first time, I was lonely. I used to read, write, sing, play instruments. I used to eat a lot of food. I used to paint, debate. I used to do a lot of things. I was doing nothing. I was not just depressed, I was depressing to be around. And this poem that I wrote, it is from a very similar, the tone of it is very conversational because it comes from a conversation I had with my mom one evening. We were sitting on the swing talking, and now that I look back, that was my turning point. Here in Nagpur, I missed every single thing about my life that I ever knew, that I ever lived. I finally knew what was wrong. And that's when I could accept it and say to myself that Delhi will always be my home, and there's nothing I can do to change that. And while I realized that is what I'm yearning for, now I could live with it. I could breathe. I realized that no matter where I go, no matter how old I grow up, I will still want the comfort of my home, and that is normal. Again, this might sound like the rant of an overly sheltered, privileged girl who hasn't seen any real hardships in life, who's narrating a Hallmark melodrama, and maybe that is even true. But now I'm still in Nagpur, and I'm happy for the first time in months. Studying in Delhi Technological University, which is my dream come true, and things finally started falling into place the day I accepted that sometimes, despite having every materialistic wish fulfilled, despite having a Shakespeare balcony right beside you, you still can't force your heart to leave the home it belongs to. So that's why the poem is titled Hirayat, and it's in a very conversational tone. So I'll try to keep the voices different. What is amiss, my child? It was just another big city, one of so many. It was busy, loud, and fast, of intimidating towers and expensive cars. Walls, bricks, and beams make houses. Look around. The marble here is whiter, the windows freshly polished. The paint brighter, and birds are chirping on the apple tree in your backyard there. So why are you not at peace here? Because it wasn't just a city, it was home. It was giving, forgiving, kind and warm, of cafes littering lanes. It was my home. Maybe one day you'll come back. And when the old greengrocer in the market smiles at you and throws in a couple of lemons in your old faded bag, when your old neighbor leaves a fresh batch of sprinkles brownies for you, when you see kids running around in your own cycling tracks and lanes, chances are you tear up and you'll break down. So you don't just miss your home, dear. You miss you don't just miss your family and friends. You miss your childhood too. The city is in your veins and it'll never let you forget it. But the old seller remembers you used to dislike broccolis and tomatoes as a kid. The lemons are in the loving memory of your favorite lemon popsicles when you were 9. For your old neighbor remembers how much you love sprinkles and colorful t-shirts. She still hasn't painted over the poppy rainbow you scribbled on her wall with crayons when you were 9. For once upon a time, you could almost ride your bike blindfolded in those lanes. Almost, because you still remember where you tripped over a pebble and crashed into a tree when you were 9. But now you're 9 no more. You've traded your popsicles for broccolis, tomatoes, and an expensive gym membership, your rainbow crayons and t-shirts for formals and code blocks, and you probably can still walk your lane backwards, but now the consequences of your mistakes are way graver than a scraped knee, and oh honey, you're 9 no more. But till the time the door creaks a sordid tune, mother, in the memory of passing time, 3 tiles will remain chipped in the shower. Till the time faint scratches on the walls in my room hint at growth of innocence and laughter in the house, old pink teddy bears will fade into brown. Till the time the welcome mat welcomes all footsteps on our small front porch, tea will always be in the pantry on the second shelf besides the tin of cookies. Walls, bricks, and beams make houses, but these are the things that made it a home. I may be 9 no more, but till the moment I yearn for familiar shadows dancing in the kitchen, that house will be my home, for that's all I've ever known. Thank you.
As someone who dislikes tomatoes, I feel very represented. Thank you so much. That was really great. Next up, we have Yashika.
One and all present here. I am Yashika. I feel so glad to be over here, and it is an effort to impress and appreciation for the artistic work of Alice Carey. I will recite a poem entitled Pictures of Memory in front of you all. The poem The poem by Alice Carey is said to be set around at a point of time in the life where the poetess she recalls the nostalgia of her past by looking at the pictures that are hanging on the wall. I choose this poem to highlight the importance of memories in our life. The theme is bound with the idea of memorizing, recollecting, recalling, and reflecting the days that they have passed cheerfully and that surrounding the immortal beauty of Mother Nature in the dark old forest. So let me begin. Among the beautiful pictures that are hanging on the wall is one of the dark old forest that seemed best of all, not for its gnarled oaks olden, dark with the mistletoe, but not for the violets golden that seem sprinkle the pale blue, not for the milk-white lilies that lean from the fragrant ledge, concreting all day with the sunbeams and stealing their golden edge, not for the vines on the upland where the bright red berries rest, nor the pinks, nor the pale, sweet cowslip, where it seems to me the best. I once had a brother, I once had a brother with eyes that were dark and deep. In the lap of that dim old forest, he lit it in peace asleep, light as the down of thistle, free as the winds that blow. We roved the beautiful summers there, the summers of long ago. But his feet on the hills grew weary, And one of the autumn eves, I made my little brother a bed of yellow leaves. Sweetly his pale arms folded my neck in a meek embrace, as the light of the immortal beauty silently covered his face, and when the arrows of sunset lodged in the trees top bright, he fell in his saint-like beauty, asleep by the gates of light. Therefore, among all the beautiful pictures on the wall that hang on the memories wall is one of the dark old forest that seemed best of all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yashika. Next, we have Ananya Jain.
Hi everyone. Firstly, I would like to say that I am very grateful to be selected as one of the poets reciting today a piece here. This is a self-composed piece which talks about loss and memory. So, as we have all faced many losses of varying degrees in this pandemic, from loss of jobs to loss of mental stability to the one loss that is worst of all, that is loss of a loved one. So this is for that loss. My heart goes out to all those who've suffered that loss. Recently, my best friend lost her father, and I don't know what happened. I was so shook by that loss that I somehow wrote this piece 2 days ago at 3 a.m. and I just knew I had to share it today. So this is dedicated to Mr. Jagdeep Singh, who recently left us for heavenly abode, who is probably sipping his favorite chai with angels right now and gushing about how proud he is that both of his daughters got into med school. And this is for the daughters who've been so busy looking after each other that they've forgotten to look after themselves, who've been so busy hearing all these words of wisdom that they've not given much time to acknowledge their own, much time to themselves to acknowledge their own feelings. And who are so busy. This is for all those who are grieving and who are trying so hard to be strong. I just want them all to know that we are proud that you're strong, but you don't have to be all the time. So I did not have the courage to title this piece, but I hope you all understand it. I apologize if I falter in between because this is very close to my heart. So here it goes. On days when the sun doesn't set quiet on the horizon, but on the dreams we lived by. On nights when the blanket of the stars isn't warm enough to heal all that you left behind. On mornings when I linger by the kitchen a little longer than I did before. On dinners when I sneak an extra ice cream cup and eat it as the tears roll by. Normalcy is overrated, I preach aloud. Broken is the new whole. Falling makes you learn how to stand. I am hurting for a reason. I say it again and again, like a prayer for the atheist that I am. I repeat it out aloud as loudly as I can. I harshly put band-aids everywhere. I am screaming now. Pain is inevitable. I am still one of the lucky ones. Broken is the new whole. Normalcy is overrated. I am learning how to stand. My voice breaks. So many bandages, but why do I still bleed? So many words of wisdom, yet why does my heart still refuse to believe? On days that go with on days that go by without your tender touch, on nights that achingly prolong without your warm embrace, I look up at the sky and search for you, my little life thread in the blanket of the stars that wheel the night. I see you, my northern star, the brightest flash of light, twinkling in the numbing darkness, just the way you did in life. I wish you well, my friend, my joy and strength, as my knees go weak. I wish you well, my heart, my love and peace, as tears roll down my cheek. Thank you.
As someone who lost a parent earlier this year, this was absolutely beautiful. Next, we have Pracharya.
Hello everyone, and extremely good afternoon to everyone present here. I am really glad to recite one of my original compositions here. I like to call it In Absentia. In this year, from absolutely nowhere, I found myself thinking and writing, and then thinking some more about how futile an exercise it is that we attempt to mark time and keep memory. For me, it's like grasping a handful of air and then hoping that you'll be able to deposit in a box somewhere and keep it safe. Days that once seemed for me defined by a familiar pattern that I used to take for granted now endlessly betray and defy. And a dying plant on my windowsill is a better timekeeper than I am. And where I would have once looked to my phone or to a calendar, a book on my table reminds me that as much as I would like to pretend that February was a lifetime ago, it's actually not. Uh, I I cannot help but be reminded of a quote by Proust. He says that remembrance of things past is not necessarily remembrance of things as they were. And I can't help but think how true it is. So now that I think that if and when in the near distant future, if I have a chance to look back upon this continuous absurdity, will I be accurate about it? Will I know which weeks are to be written off fondly and which are to be locked away and not to be thought of? Or will I again turn to familiar objects and rely on them to do my work for me? Or will this year be defined by absence? Because for me, this year is the absence of everything that we took for granted, everything that we just assumed would always be there. And the people that we thought that we'll talk to them some other time, or we'll call them tomorrow becomes a year after. So I can't help but think that will this endless trail of nothingness be defined by absence instead? So with that, I'll just get to my poem. Do not linger in the hallway, rocking back and forth. Ask to come in. I know there's rot in your lungs, perhaps some in mine too. Sidestep it, talk about the weather. Tell me if you remember the last 6 weeks, the last 6 months. Stay 6 feet away. Sidestep the rot in the air. Talk about your day. Won't you come on in? The world outside is slow, and mine inside is a glass ball of oddity. Shed your shoes at the door. I know you don't intend to stay, but please walk gingerly. You see the floor, the wall, the cold, foggy panes on the window. The fingerprints on the ceiling are my weekends, my last Monday. Beyond that, a graveyard of stolen time. Walk softly, you know your way well. Help me grasp for a week beyond that cabinet locked away. Do you see how it refuses to be neatly arranged? Like weeping leaves of a dying willow, I'm drowning in leftover days. Poetry in absentia, in depth of time and mind and movement, is not easy to me. Every day is like the last, every line distorted into the next. Perhaps I exaggerate, wishful thinking, scratched out lines, and memory. Elusive memory alone does not a poet make. Won't you join me, friend, lover, intimate stranger? Untidy verse awaits in my head. If you ask nicely, I might trade you bits and pieces. A dried flower here, a metaphor there, a year condensed in 3 quick pictures, a life in stories, a rose-colored echo that might otherwise resent us. And if you're rising to leave with old borrowed clothes in your hand and an afternoon of past relics, wash your hands off sentiment, leave your keys to yesterday on the table, grab a few stories from off the wall, and if your hands are full, stand still, memorize a few. Let me write the crooked crescent of your mouth, the authoritarian slope of your nose. Look at me and linger. Linger a little longer. Linger and shuffle your feet around like we didn't grow up together, like we're two ticking time bombs of disease death. Time's running out, reminiscing grows senile still. So please, while you still can, Leave your trinkets in my tenement, steal a few of mine. Don't ask, don't tell. Which ones go into a picture frame? Which ones go into a bad song? All I ask is this: write me into an anxious poem. Draw badly the contour of my nose. Your crystal clear face will vanish. In a day or two, my flowers to you will wither and rot and damage. But please, relive me on paper and ink and every errand smudge and anything but our perpetual absences.
Wow, Prachurya, that was beautiful. Next, we have Ashima Prasad.
Hello, everyone. So I have wrote a poem titled "Warm Winter, Cold Spring," and as ironic the title is, the greater realization at the core of it is also sort of ironic. So we move around a lot due to my father's job, and we pack memories into boxes and leave one city for another. Two of my friends from seventh class used to make very thoughtful birthday cards for me with plagiarized quotes, and now we're in touch only through passive Instagram stories. Um, my puppy love from high school, really embarrassing, but reacts with the clapping hand emoji every time I post something criticizing the government. So this is how we stay in touch. Um, a kindergarten friend. Her name was Hia. That is the only thing I remember about her. Although the school van used to drop her right before me to to her house every dry Jaipur afternoon for a whole summer. So for the longest time, memories seemed frivolous because the people I made them with were no longer present in my life. So we couldn't laugh about them on long phone calls or sit on the terrace at night and think about them, how foolish we were. So my way to stand tall against the waves of loss was to convert my heart into a boat. No more memories. No one will know that I'm deathly scared of amusement park rides or that I couldn't breathe when I couldn't solve a few physics problems. Love in a city far away from home taught me that it unlocked my heart. It unlocked my world. The 4 o'clock malaise was gone. I was having fun. We used to go window shopping, holding hands. I drunk dance with my friends at 4 a.m. Um, all of us ate momos from various stalls across the city. I think that is how we mapped Delhi. So a lot of memories about Delhi have him inevitably. Um, it would be wrong to tell that these memories are not real or as important as their predecessors. So, the important realization has been that even though you can't keep all of the people that have impacted you at some point in time in your life, so sometimes you leave and sometimes they do, and there is nothing you can do about it. So, I now imagine my heart as a museum with a very rich and beautiful collection. Um, a lot of paintings, invaluable gifts. So, Virginia Woolf once said that you can't have complete emotion about the present. You just can't. You always look back it in hindsight and sort of decipher what you felt and the magnitude of it, the amount of it. So, I'm sure looking back, I'm going to laugh and be embarrassed that I recited a poem about lost love in front of so many people. But for now, this poem spoke to me, so why not? So here we go. Warm winter, cold spring. Last year, when the birds flew south, you offered me the fireplace of your arms. We ate oranges in a garden, soaking in sunlight and music. The silken guzzle, a man challenging his lover to forget him, emanating from Appa's study, weighs down the urn of our memories. A bowing palm tallying with a crow prompts a memory of the many embraces shared on Delhi streets. And I laugh. If being a fool wasn't enough, I'm also a poet. I try to find beauty in broken promises and meter in my antidote to carrying your heart in mine. The Chinese restaurant we frequented for gobbling spicy shrimp fries has closed down. One less headstone to visit. I will let you go now, no questions asked. Fly into the blue canopy, my beloved Finch. Thank you.
Wow, Ashima, you made me miss Delhi even more. Next, we have Ananya Upadhyay.
Hello, everyone. Um, so, my poetry is about rain, and it's a sonnet written in the form of Shakespearean sonnet. So, the pioneer of English Romantic movement, William Wordsworth, is my muse behind his poetry. So, one day when I was sitting in my front porch, it started raining, and it took me back to the time when I go through the work of William Wordsworth, and I somehow started penning down my thoughts. Uh, and slowly, it changed into the poetry, which I'm going to recite now. So here's how it goes. Sitting next to the window, fall upon me tiny drops. I saw trolling lily in meadow and dancing paddy crops. Peasants singing merry song, nightingale chanting her melody, thirsty crows sin so long, relishing raindrops and rhapsody. What a picturesque scene is this! Lush green leaves shining with mist, parched land found, heavenly bliss, creating such utopia to exist. Thou drizzle composing a familiar fantasia, offering us the sweet syrup of nectar and ambrosia. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Priyal Goyer. Grover, sorry, what? Priyal Grover.
I'm Priyal. I'm going to recite a poem. I remember by Thomas Hood. I chose this poem because on most nights before falling asleep, I often think of the house in which I lived 18 years of my life. My family and I moved into a new house last year. Initially, I didn't quite like it. Though it's bigger, it's nothing as compared to the old house. I was attached to the house, and leaving it didn't quite feel right. Anyway, I got used to the new house after a few months, but still, there are days when I think of how I used to sit alone at the terrace at night, watch the moon and the stars, and listen to music. How my grandparents and I basked sunlight in the balcony. How I thought that one day I'd become Spider Man and would not have to use the stairs and would just climb up to the third floor. How I was always in the drawing room after my parents had fell asleep and binge watched shows. Uh, I was always on alert at that time. Uh, how I pulled all nighters during board exams, and how for the first time my cousin stayed over and we talked through the night. How I played hopscotch on the marble floor. There are innumerous things that I can list. I really miss it because now I live on the ground floor. I don't have access to the terrace any time of the day. I have to go to the park to bask in the sunlight. And my first didn't, my maximum of my first didn't take place in here. So, the moment I read this poem, it instantly took me down a memory lane I'd never forget. So, let's get into the poem. Just a second. I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at the morn. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day. But now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. I remember the roses red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light, the lilacs where the robin built, and where my brother said, the laburnum on his birthday, the tree is living yet. I remember where I was used to swing, and thought the air must rust as fresh to swallows on the wing. My spirit flew in the feathers then, that is so heavy now, and summer pools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. I remember the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. It was a childish ignorance, but now it's little joy to know I'm farther off from heaven than when I was a boy. Thank you.
Next, we have Sumedha Sengupta.
One thing I would like to say that up to this point, whatever I've heard has just taken my breath away, and I cannot even imagine a better way of spending a pandemic afternoon. So the poem I'm going to recite. So when I saw this WhatsApp message circulation about a meet from the society, I wanted to write a new poem, but the theme was memory, right? So just the theme itself made me think of the first poem I had ever written in my life. Not in my life, but in the phase that I've actually started writing poetry. This was the first one, my first. So I'm going to use a very hackneyed analogy here, but you know how you progress through maybe you're climbing a ladder and you look back at the point you started, and it looks different at each point. And this poem to me looks different at every time I read it, and it has new meaning and it means something else. And the beautiful thing about poetry that I have found is that it somehow has a way of tying all its loose ends, even if in the beginning it is very scattered and everything. It just has a way of falling in place. And that is what I love about poetry. Now coming to the piece, this piece is dedicated to my grandfather, who I had lost just like a few weeks before my board exams, and he was one of the most special people in my entire life. I mean, everything I have done up to this point, he used to teach me mathematics, he used to teach me physics. I'm studying chemistry now, and that was something that he had imagined for me, that I should study something as interesting as chemistry. And he used to watch me, he used to see me, and in a way, he used to decode the person I am. So till date, I've been trying to think of why I wrote this poem when I did. It was more than 2 years back, before I even started college. But I did write this poem, and in fact, when I think about it, it's a very creepy thought, but I did write it. And the only reason I could think of was that I have, when my grandfather, he passed away, my grandmother started having dementia. She started forgetting everything, and I could see the person she was slowly drifting apart, slowly slipping away. So that made me think that, did my grandfather, the person I had held most close to my heart, did he also drift away at some point of his life? Or was he always the perfect person that I had always known him to be? So I'll not go into this further, and I'll just start reciting. So the way he decoded me, just in that way, this poem is titled Decoding Dadu. Sometimes I wonder what could have been going through his mind moments before the electrocardiograph made that irrevocable sound. Perhaps thinking of not existing had made him shudder. Or maybe he just merrily rested in the memories of his beloved mother. Perhaps he was woefully reminiscing the living man's glory. Or maybe he was basking in glee at the thought of the 1983 victory. Perhaps he was recounting those unfulfilled many a dream. Or maybe he closed his eyes and smacked his lips at the thought of chocolate ice cream. Perhaps he was pleading with a heartless, persistent clock. Or maybe he just smiled blithely at the thought of the chilly air on his morning walk. Perhaps he was trying to come back to us, his next of kin. Or maybe he just swayed along with the melody of the mandolin. Perhaps he was sorrowful that his journey would not go any further. Or maybe, just maybe, he was, as always, my cheerful, optimistic grandfather. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Sumedha. I can see someone clapping in one of the boxes. Next, we have one of our amazing ex-faculty members, Miss Kanupriya Dhingra. So, ma'am, please go on.
Not just an ex-faculty member. I was more of a student of Maitreyi, and that's why I keep finding these ways to come back and, just be here. Thank you for having me. And what I'm going to recite today is a very short poem. And so homesickness is one of the most familiar forms of nostalgia for me, and I hope for a lot of people here, especially as students who move out of your, houses and homes, and then you try to remake your lives elsewhere. And so in memory of a home that I had left about 10 to 11 years ago, I wrote this poem last year in another country, in another space. And this was not about the whole house, but a very specific part of it. And the funny thing about memory is that it creeps in bits and pieces, and in the most random of moments, and in the most random of places. So I've tried to maintain the voice of a child here, or an adult who wants to return to a certain childhood. I've never been especially fond of celebrating festivals, not a lot of them, but I do miss the companionship and the deliberate attempts to, decorate our houses or decorate ourselves and decorate our hearts, but especially the food. One has to agree that once you're away from home, you miss the food the most for some reason. You can cook it, but no. So here it is, wholly away from home, a recipe. Step 1, think of gujiyas. Remember how mother made those tiny folds as she wrapped roasted mawa filled with sugar, spice, and all things nice. The leftover filling, a special treat. The first gujiya was for Ganesh. The second one was for you to taste. Not to say that mother loved Ganesh more, you were asked to eat only one, until father came back home. You secretly ate two, but mother always knew. Step 2, forget everything else, go back home. Thank you.
Would anybody like to perform?
It's me here.
Sure. Go ahead. The stage,
Okay.
the mic, the Google Meet is yours.
So first of all, my name is Anshika Avni, and I'm from a small city of the big country, that's Ranchi. Hope you have heard of it. And today, my poem talks of a very basic thing, but that's something very lovely and I would like to share. So here it is. Touches the sweetest essence of every little kid, growing on different lands, special lights and landscapes. It's a tale for every child on the blueness of our spatial existence. So the poem begins right here. Pastel colors and boxes of clay would glitter our nights and illuminate our day. The drawing sheets would roll some stories that I remember today as sweet memories. And what wonders would get cooked in the small plates of pink when soil and grass would roast in to make it stink. Have you never tried falling off cycles on a stony track and then reaching your mum with a teary rap? The touch of her cotton palms and whoosh of air was always better than a doctor's care. And today, that I smile and chuckle at my soft past, I wish it wouldn't have passed such fast. So all that I have planned is to hold my innocence at age 5 and live like a child all my life. Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any thoughts to share? Any comments? Any anecdotes? Anything?
I guess a huge shout out to Dhiti and Maitreyi College for organizing this, for making a glum afternoon for all of us interesting and something to look forward to.
Thank you so much. We never shy away from a little bit of self-promotion. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the participants for their beautiful poems, for sharing their thoughts with us. Thank you to all the audience members who took the time out of their day to support us. And thank you to all the faculty members who allowed this to happen, even though 5 feet apart and everything. Wear your masks, stay 5 feet apart, use a sanitizer, and stay at home. This is still a pandemic. This is Dhiti signing off. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you very much.